So we're going to talk about lashing or lacing. And that means to take your warp and you're going to lash it to the stick. A lot of people have always maybe taken it around and tied it like this. And then you have long pieces of warp that you waste. Especially on this one, since we have a limited number of warp length, we want to utilize the whole length. And so this does help. So I've done the first 3. So the first thing I'm going to do, I usually group in about 1 inch. So if I was thinking of 8 inches and I've got this much left, I might do 3 more knots, something like that. All right. But I just want to do, and then I'm just smaller bundles instead of big glob bundles, because you can see the space that needs to close in versus these spaces are much already closed in before I start weaving. So I'm going to kind of pull on it, make sure it looks good, pretty even. Take 2 of my fingers, I am right-handed, 2 of my fingers over, I make a J, letter J, under, grab this with my fingers. I'm going to take this group and pull over. And so before I start, if I yank this part down, my tails are way too long. So I don't want to do that. So I'm going to kind of do it together. So make the J, go under. I've got this finger here, and what I'm doing is I'm pulling my knot down, and before I cinch it, I'm going to look at this knot. Where does this knot need to be in relationship to this one? Whoops. So when you look at them, they're about the same. That's the best way. If you can get them where all the knots are going to be about the same, the lacing or the lashing part will be so much easier. So the next group, comb it out, make sure they're all even, make a J, go under, bring this one over, pinch, and I'm sliding. These are all even, there's no saggies. Around, pinch, pull. This one is a little shorter. This one has none. So, got all of them tied. I'll show you how to work with that one. People always say, what do I use for my cord? You can use pretty much, well, anything. 8/4 is really strong. I've always doubled it, though. I don't do it singly. One, it burns your fingers. Sometimes you get a yarn burn. Normally, it's about 3 widths of this. Depending on where your knots are, just do 5. Okay, that's my single one. Grab this one. Now I'm just doubling it. That's all I'm doing is doubling it. And I do that same knot, little 6 knot. Okay, so I have a double-stranded. It's thicker, it's heavier. So I do mine a little differently. So some people always start here on the edge, and they'll tie this and they'll start lashing. I have always started in the center, always. Most of my warps are much wider, so I find the center of my cord, which is about here. I go to the center of my rod. I go under. I grab the first center one, so it looks like this one. I split it in the center, put my string in there. Now, if you notice, this one's being pulled off-centered. So if you can, once you find the center, just take this one, lay it over your table, and lean on it, or put something on it to where it's heavy, so that when you give a little bit of a tug, you're not losing it, okay? The other thing is that I'm not trying to tension this now. All I'm doing is lashing. I'm not tensioning it. So the question is, looking at your stick, if you went over, this one now goes under. Grab the next one, find the center, go through. It doesn't matter if you go over or under. I always consistently do the same thing. So I do under. But that's just because I do that. All right, you're onto the stick again. Ask yourself, did you go over or under? This is over. This one's now under. Over here and this one. This is not tension. Look how saggy it is. All right, so now I've got enough to tie this when I need to. Now I'm on this side. All right, so go through the center. Ask yourself, see, it's under here. So now this one's going to go over. So basically, it looks like your tennis shoe, just like you're tying your tennis shoe, okay? if you look right here, this one is under, over. So this is about, there's not really any warp that's been wasted. So now, if I started to cinch this up, these actually would end up touching this rod, and there'd still be too much slack on it. So I always say, make the loom work for you. Now what you want to do is crank a little bit this way, and then crank a little bit this way. And so what I'm doing is I'm adding tension by just doing my back and front beam, and I'm getting this nice and even. Once I feel like there's about 2 fingers width, then if I pull on this, hold, grab the next one, pull, don't let go, because if I let go, then it all just undoes itself. You want to pull, grab with this hand, grab this one, pull, grab this one, and then come to this one. And then now I need to tether this one, okay? Granted, I'm going to go back through this in a minute, but I need to tether it, okay? So this is over. I'm going to go under. I'm going to teach you another trick. Go under again, because what you're doing is you're adding tension and the bar is helping you hold it. So after you do that, you need to tie this. And I know I do a lot of alphabet stuff. So this to me looks like a D or a P. So what I did was loop it. I'm just going to go in the hole, pull this down, do another loop. But what I'm going to do is do a bow tie. So when I need to get it off, I'm just having to pull this one instead of having to get scissors and undo it. So I'm going to do this one. So I'm feeling. This one's a little loose. This feels good. So I don't need to do anything to this one. So I'm going to start. So once again, I'm just pulling. You want this and this to equal. Pull a little bit, grab, pull a little bit, grab. If you let go, it's going to zing right back. So once again, you're pulling, and before you tie this one, it becomes a feel. I've told people before, close your eyes and you're feeling it. You want them to feel. Don't feel here. It's going to be tight right here. Some people can feel back here. You just want to make sure it's consistent. All right, so in the last one, after you've made sure your tension is correct, okay, that's what you need to make sure, is that it's all correct. If it doesn't feel it, then you need to stop and readjust. You can do this a little bit, but you're still readjusting. When you get to the end, down here, do the same thing you did here. Take it, this one was under, over, and sometimes, this is kind of close, my fingers are really close in here, around and around, okay? If this tends to slide in, this now has loose again, and your selvage is you don't want loose selvages, you want it to be consistent. So what I have done is I've actually gone to the outer part where I can use this as my tether. So go around again. And so what this is doing is this is now, it's not sliding in. So grab this, and then that's the same thing. You see it looks like a D or a letter P, and then you can actually go in and make a bow tie so that this can come out. All right, so I'm getting ready to advance my warp. A lot of weavers will fill this up with waste to what we say, close these little V's in. I mean, that's okay if you want to do this, but I have done it several other different ways. This is the much easier for me, the cleanest. I like my fringe not to be crimped up from the weave structure because it stays that way. So what I'm going to do first is advance. So I'm going to let my tension off, and I'm going to advance. I want my knots down somewhere around in here, but what I'm measuring is, this is the, if you see this knot, it is the one that is the furthest up. So I need about, if you want 6 inches of fringe, you can actually put a tape right here. That right there will be my first pick, my first fell line. That, of course, is too close, so I need that to be about right in here. So I need to really advance about 4 inches. The tape never lies. Put it on there. So if you start here, I want 6 inches, or do I want 5 inches? Remember, this is a limited warp, okay? So I may just want short fringe on it. So if I do, then I may just want a 4-inch fringe, which I think I'm going to lean that way. So anyway, so if you can see, the knot's about right here. When I use my rigid Heddle, that's still a decent place to be. So that's about right there. So I'm going to stop right there, all right? And so when I get ready to throw, I'm starting with my yarn. I'm not going to start with filler. So I've got enough hanging out. I'm going to go through. Notice I didn't pull this down. I left it up. I need all of this if I can, okay? I'm going to stop. I'm going to change. So notice I did not beat. This is my first pick, did not beat. Throw the second pick. I am going to, notice my fingers are underneath supporting this thread. So what I'm doing is I'm just bringing this close and I'm just touching, all right? I'm not beating. Raising it one more time. First pick, second pick, not beat. And I have not done any beating. A third pick. Sometimes 2 will work, 3 usually does. My objective is to make my warp all perpendicular in this structure right here. This is fringe. So after I've done that, I'm going to lower this to where my holes are smack even. And when I bring this to here, you can see what's happening. These aren't closing, but these have already closed here. This is all I'm worried about. I'm not worried about this part. This is the part I'm worried about. So this is the only one, as you can see, is a little bit of a split right here. And the reason is that I had actually moved this over. So I have a bigger V here. Smaller clumps, very easy to pull in. All right. So then I am down. So with this one, throw in this. And then when I beat, I always bring my holes back. I touch. And then if I'm going up, notice I'm slanting this like that. That actually does lock in that pick really nice. Grab this, touch. Don't pull on that outer thread. That'll stretch it. Drop it to neutral. And what I mean that is make the holes here, because that's where you have the best beat. And then you're doing this, and then we're ready to go. But you can see the first stripe is definitely going to be the burgundy one. Depending on the width, will determine how fat, I guess is the word, that stripe will be. Because on the socks, they were about like this, but because we're actually doing, you know, everything contained in one area, it might be 3/4 of an inch, could be an inch, I'm not sure. So let us weave some and then you'll actually see what we're doing. All right, so I have woven a little bit of the beginning of the scarf. Notice that I did not put a bunch of filler in here. My knots are getting ready to touch my breast beam right here at the very front, all right? And so when I advance, what's going to happen is these knots are going to lay on this and cause bumpiness when the work actually goes on top of it. So to stop that, I've got a piece of cardboard, and it's not cardboard, this is actually the back of a yellow pad, a legal pad. Cereal boxes work great because the cardboard is flexible enough, thin enough, and they can curve, okay? As long as the cardboard is as wide as the project, or in this case, my knots, okay? Because that's what I'm going to conceal, all right? So this is how I do that. I'm going to advance first, and as I come around, you can see the knots are getting ready to touch, okay? And as they do, this is going to come in from underneath. You don't want it at top because they're going to eventually envelop them. It's almost like the paper at the back, except you're going to do it at the front, okay? And what's going to happen is these are actually going to be covered up by the cardboard. All right, so I'm just going to advance a little bit and put my lock on. I'm doing it now just so, see how they're going to go inside and then this is going to come up over. And what that's doing is just providing a really smooth transition. And you won't see your fell line look like a bunch of waviness because usually that's caused by not falling on an even surface. So that's the trick of that one. And then your fell line should be straight. you need to keep your weaving about right in here. If you go too close, your picks per inch will change. If you try to do it too far, your picks are going to change. So I tend to weave right here and advance, all right? So, and then I'm feeling. The other thing I always forget, and I'm so guilty of this, is I never put my rigid heddle in neutral before I advance. And it always flops all over the place, but make sure this is in neutral before you advance. Okay.